This is a deck proposal for a mono blue fairy deck. It's not a full 100% deck, but rather a deck that needs your feedback to make it even better. I had a fairy miscreant at home that I was looking at and I wanted to utilize it in a deck. If you control another creature with its same name when it enters, you'll draw a card. I had to, of course, put 4 of these in the deck, otherwise it's kind of a waste, but I like that it has this ability, and then it's a 1/1 for 1 with flying that also draws a card, which is really good. Fairy Seer is similar, but scries 2 when it enters instead. Scrying isn't drawing, but it's incredibly helpful, especially since there are 4 in the deck. There are 4 copies of Briarberry Cohort as well, to be a 2/2 with flying as long as we control another blue creature. We probably will because there are 33 creatures in the deck, and evasion is the name of the game here, so we'll take it. Speaking of blue spells, 4 copies of Dream Thief lets us draw a card if we already played another blue spell this turn. This keeps us drawing, and since everything is super cheap, this will trigger a bunch. Latchkey Fairy is pretty close to Dream Thief. This time, if you paid its prowl cost, you'll draw a card. You have to deal combat damage with a fairy or a rogue, but once you do, you'll draw a card and get a very aggressive fairy that's a 3/1. There are 3 of these. To continue the trend of card draw, there are 4 copies of Tome Raider. It's a rather steep price for a 1/1 with flying, but having the native ability to draw a card when it enters is fantastic. We don't have to jump through any hoops on this one. We do, however, have to jump through a hoop for our 4 Surveilling Sprites. It has to die to draw a card, but we can expect it to probably die. Having entering card draw and leaving card draw helps us all the time. Pestermite is a fun utility creature that has flash, flying, and taps or untaps a permanent. This could be a land to untap in order to cast more fairies, or something an opponent controls to swing through, or just untap a land to counter a spell. I don't know, it can be very useful in the right situation, and there are 2 of these. And lastly, for creatures, there are 4 copies of Spell Stutter Sprite. Another one with flash. This one acts as a counter spell that counters a spell with CMC X or less, where X is the number of fairies we control. We'll definitely have a lot of those, so this will probably counter most things in Pauper. And continuing the trend of countering stuff, there are 4 Spell Stutters. It probably comes from Spell Stutter Fairy from the card before, but it counters spells unless its controller pays 2 plus an additional 1 for each fairy we control. We'll be drawing so many cards and putting so many little fairies out that this is just going to be great. 4 Lofty Denials are here as well. Like Spell Stutter, because the cost you have to pay becomes greater if you have a creature with flying. Paying 4 mana to deal with a counterspell might be doable, but it does not feel good. All these countering abilities are very important to be able to deal with sweeper spells like Blazing Volley or Psychotic Haze, so without them, our fairies will probably just die real fast. There's 16 islands as well as 3 Halimar Depths to be able to stack our deck to get ahead of the game. Moving on to the sideboard, we've got even more counter spells. Fairy Trickery counters non-fairy spells, and then the countered spell is exiled. There are 3 of these. 3 Blue Elemental Blasts as well for those red spells. This is a cheap alternative that can easily be swapped out. 4 Sea Sprites are here as well to be able to deal with the red spells. 1/1 flying with Pro Red ain't bad in this deck. 3 Snaps deal with the creatures we couldn't counter at the time. It also untaps 2 lands, so then we can just counter the creature later, I guess, if our opponent tries to recast it. I don't know, it's a fun time. And lastly, there are 2 Tormod's Crypts for those graveyard decks. I hope you like this one. It was a fun one to put together. Let me know what you think and click on that TCGplayer affiliate link below in order to purchase all these fine fairies. Thank you to my Patreon subscribers, and consider joining for as little as $1 a month. I'll catch you next week for your weekly dose of magic.